Alright guys, it is my last night in the C8 Corvette. I wanted to sum up some thoughts on what it's been like to live with this thing the last few days and 200 miles. Think of it as your entry-level, comfortable supercar. This new C8 is a whole nother level of refinement for the Corvette brand and just the overall image of the vehicle. Personally, I've been waiting for them to release the mid-engine version of this car probably for the last 2 decades. Every Detroit auto show that my best friend and I go to, we're like, this is the year. They're finally going to do the Corvette. It's going to be mid-engined, and couldn't believe it when we first saw it come out a couple years ago. So it's great to finally drive it. This thing is phenomenal. They've done a really good job with it. It's not quite what the C7 was, and in terms of rawness and excitement, there's a more refined character to the C8. The C7 was still a muscle car. It was still kind of a leery, engaging, visceral beast to wheel around. There was a sharpness and an excitement factor that is lacking a little bit here. And of course, this is still the base model Corvette. There are special versions yet to come. And but think of this as a little bit of a step up for Corvette in terms of quality, refinement. It almost feels a little bit European. And it kind of reminds me of a budget McLaren. I think they've done a really nice job with this base model to start. And I'm really excited to see what happens from here on out. This has been a really easy car to live with all week. It's incredibly comfortable. The ergonomics are great. This roof is actually quite easy to take off. We showed that in a previous video where we did a little bit of a back road blast. And for a mid-engine car, it's surprisingly easy to get into because you don't have this massive structural brace here like you do in many supercars. That is primarily in the center of the vehicle and aids ingress and egress substantially. As a driver, I love what Chevrolet has done with this cockpit. It's all driver focused. Everything, all the controls are easy to access and use. The climate control is a little bit confusing at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's okay. And sitting in the passenger seat, it's not as bad as it looks. It's a little bit tight, probably for larger passengers, but overall, I think this wall here doesn't quite get in the way as much as you think it would. It definitely feels like you're in a little bit of a cocoon, even though there is more leg room and room to recline your seats behind you. There are a lot of neat little touches and just clever thoughts. Something that's a little bit strange though, the center console storage area doesn't quite stay open on its own. You do get wireless charging right here. The Bose sound system in this is fantastic. It sounds really good. There are really neat integrations throughout the cabin for buttons. Everything is quite simply laid out too, which is great. I like how the climate control is all buttons and knobs, even if it is this weird long strip. The infotainment is lightning fast. It's really easy to use. Everything has buttons that needs it, and going through the settings, changing things in this car is all quite straightforward. Do the performance data recorder there. One of these days I hope we can get into a Z51 package and take one of these out on track, because I will say this 2LT isn't quite as aggressive as the Z51 would be. The all-season tires on this, however, they are fantastic for the street. I think they lack a little bit of sharpness that the Pilot Sport 4S's would add, and there's just a little bit less of an aggressive character to this car. Before we go on our drive tonight, I would like to thank the sponsor for this video, Fantom wallets. You may have seen these guys on some other automotive YouTube channels. They make ultra slim minimalist wallets. I have two here, both with money clips because I like to carry a little bit of cash. They have a variety of sizes that accommodate different numbers of credit cards, receipts. If you're interested in changing up your wallet situation, we have a discount code for all of the TheTopher subscribers. The code is TOPHER15 for 15% off. Again, if you want to support the channel and you need a new wallet like I did, check these guys out. They make some pretty cool stuff, and there's lots of options and ways to customize your wallet to your own personal preferences. All right, guys, let's take this Corvette for a drive. This dual clutch is very, very good. It's engaging, it's quite lively, it's very smooth, and it's wicked fast. It's so much better than the automatics used to be in the Corvettes. And I think there's still just enough engagement and excitement here to satisfy a lot of the manual purists. There is a little bit of involvement in the paddle shifters. They're responsive, they're quick. It is satisfying rowing through the gears and hearing that quick shift response. You can even set the car up to change different gauge modes depending on the driving mode that you're in. Let's do a little launch control here for you guys. So for launch control, you have to be in sport mode, traction off, mash the brake pedal down hard. And it's all done in a few seconds. This thing launches incredibly hard. It's pretty impressive. When you engage launch control, the dual clutch shifts just that much more aggressively. Gives you kind of a push into the back of your seat between shifts, whereas normally it's pretty smooth between gear changes. I do like that this is only an 8-speed and not over-geared. I think 10 gears is just a lot to cycle through. This sounds pretty good too with the performance exhaust. To really get some volume out of it though, you do have to be pretty deep into the throttle. With light throttle, this thing still doesn't quite sing. You have to get into it. It's a very livable exhaust for that reason. But again, I'm sure there are going to be more aggressive versions of this car to come, including a flat plane crank V8, which is probably just going to be mega. That's going to be incredible. The high points with this trim level are the comfort and refinement that it offers. It's unlike any other Corvette that's been made in the sense that it just feels that much more refined and that much more special. When Chevrolet puts their work into something, they can make a really good vehicle, and this Corvette shows. I think they put probably more money into this project and more investment than they have in just about anything in the past. There's a little bit of understeer at the limit. That, I think, is exacerbated by the all-season tires. And it depends what kind of driving you're going to be doing with a car like this. If you're going to be cruising, you're going to be going to car shows, you're going to be doing some aggressive driving, but you're not going to be doing track work or autocross or anything like that, this is a good package to swing for. If you're going to be driving on track, if you're going to be doing any sort of aggressive street driving, canyon carving, you're probably going to want to swing for the Z51 pack and get those extra sticky summer tires. I think that makes a world of difference in the front end responsiveness. I'm excited to test one of those cars and see what it's actually like, but from what I've heard from people who have driven it and this, it's a pretty big difference. You can also tune the alignment in this car quite a bit to suit track use. GM recommends about 3 degrees of negative camber up front, 2.5 in the rear. Otherwise, as I've mentioned in my previous videos, this thing is supremely comfortable. It gets great fuel economy, 28, 27 on the highway easily. All week with a lot of spirited driving, I've averaged about 17, 18 miles to the gallon. $72,000, it's a lot of money, but for what you're getting here, guys, that is a bargain. This is so much car for the money. It really, really is. It feels like a $100,000 car. It feels like something that's a little bit more expensive than what it is. And that's not always the case at cars at this price point. Sometimes there are diminishing returns beyond 50 grand, and this is an exception. Chevrolet has kept it relatively simple from a technology standpoint. They've focused on the driving experience. They've made a really nice, balanced vehicle. This isn't supposed to be the most hardcore version of the Corvette, but it still puts a smile on your face, and it's exciting to drive in the sense that it's an occasion when you drive it. The way this car looks, the way it feels when you walk up to it and get into it, there's something to be said about that. You can even kick it a little bit sideways. When you really want to hustle it, it'll hang. The performance here is pretty impressive. But again, this is performance that's supercar level performance. It's not really stuff that you can explore on the street at street speeds. To get this car to sing, to get it to make noise and really engage that chassis, you have to push it, and that's kind of one of those situations where you want to take this car out on the track. I think this is the kind of car that will satisfy a lot of Chevrolet's demographic for the Corvette. Traditional, hardcore Corvette buyers of the past are going to love this thing. I think it's going to bring new buyers into the brand. Everyone loves this car. I have gotten more attention in this thing this week than I ever have, and I think in just about any press car. And that says a lot. Not only is this thing an American icon, but it's new and fresh and exciting. It's a new direction for the Corvette brand. And it's something that people have been waiting for a very long time. The front tires are noisy, but once they hook up, they do grip quite well. And you need to get a little bit of heat in them to get them to stick. These are still all seasons, remember, and for being all seasons, their performance is incredible. I've even heard that they do okay in the snow, which is pretty crazy to think about. One of my favorite features of this car that I learned early on was you just pull both paddles, puts you into neutral, and you can give it a little bit of a rev. It's pretty cool. That'll satisfy the cars and coffee crowd. And this V8 is so responsive. It really does rev like it has a super light flywheel. Doesn't quite have that sonorous, higher pitched register that the C7 had, but I think it sounds pretty good, and it still makes you feel like you're in a Corvette because it just sounds right. If you want to make this a little bit louder, a little bit more aggressive, I would probably head to the aftermarket, throw a header on here, and with the dual mode exhaust, you'd have a lot of noise, a lot of volume when it's open, and it'd be pretty quiet when you put it into tour mode and turn things off. When you're just cruising in this, it does switch into V4 mode quite often. You can hear it. The engine makes a little bit of a click as half the cylinders shut off. It's mildly irritating to me. On the plus side, you're saving fuel and getting great gas mileage. Switching from V4 to V8 mode, though, is seamless, super quick, very responsive. You just notice it as a little green light that shows up in your little cluster there. Guys, it doesn't get much better than this for this gig. I'll be honest, this is pretty awesome. While we're on the highway here, just cruising, let's do a second sound test. Finish up the tracks that we usually did in our first impressions video. hopefully that gives you guys a good idea what this sounds like on the highway. This Bose is awesome. It's really nice. Great bass, crystal clear audio quality. You're going to be happy with this Performance Series Bose sound system. Alright, we've got one more entrance ramp here. Let's see what this thing does around a corner. A little bit of noise from the front tires, but you push harder and they grip harder. This thing hustles. It really does. If you're going to be doing any performance driving with this, get the summer performance tires. But for everything else, these all seasons are actually surprisingly good. I'm genuinely impressed. And this is without mag ride. This is just your standard suspension. Amazing ride quality, great cornering grip. I actually really enjoy driving this with the paddles quite a bit. The shifts are just so crisp and smooth. The rev matches are perfect. There's no jerkiness to this. And it'll do that. You can hang the C8 out a little bit. And for being mid-engined, it's very controllable. This is maybe one of the easiest mid-engine cars to drive I've ever driven. And all mid-engine cars understeer. It's just kind of part of their nature. It's either understeer or snap oversteer. I'd take the safe understeer if it were my choice, to be honest. The NSX understeered. I think there is so much here to satisfy the driving enthusiast. Like I said earlier, this is going to appeal to a lot of different people. And there are going to be so many versions of this Corvette that are going to come out that it's going to be hard not to find something that you will love. I will say this is probably one of my favorite cars I've driven all year. It's just that nice. It's just that good. It's really well-rounded. I would like Chevrolet to inject a little bit more excitement and fun and noise and drama into their more aggressive Z06s and Grand Sports and the Zora someday. And I'm sure they will. I am convinced that they are going to be listening and will make some crazy, crazy stuff out of this mid-engine architecture. But until then, this thing is really, really good. And anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this series of videos on this car. I sure have enjoyed filming them and driving this thing. Hopefully we can get some track time in one of these soon in a Z51 pack. But until then, it has been an absolute pleasure driving this thing and giving you guys the opportunity to see what it's like behind the wheel. Again, thanks to our sponsor today, Fantom Wallets, and thanks to Chevrolet for loaning us this for the week. Be sure to head over to Winding Road Magazine's YouTube channel. We'll be doing a lot of videos on this car on that channel too, and of course Charlie puts his spin on things on the Daily Motor YouTube channel. And overall, we're filming like, I don't know, 8-12 videos on this car. It's kind of ridiculous. But we wanted to get some good content out for you guys on this because this is a special vehicle and we're pretty excited to get our hands on it. So, again, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.